Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. It's Thursday, the 30th day of May. Thanks so much for tuning into O'Connor and Company. We got you covered for the next 4 hours, and it's a busy one. We're on jury watch. We're waiting for the verdict. They have the case in their hands. They're deliberating, and the jury instructions were interesting, if not Banana Republic style, un-American. And we'll get into a lot of details as the morning develops. Also at 6:05, Mark Paoletta on the assault on Justice Alito's character and his determination to not recuse himself because he did nothing wrong. 6:35, Brent Bozell on how the media is covering the Trump trial. 7:05, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch. 7:35, Nick Minnox covering the Loudoun County travel expenses. The superintendent of schools is now traveling all over the place instead of just staying put and doing his job. 8:05, the chairman of the RNC, Michael Whatley. First time we've spoken to the new chairman of the Republican Committee. And then at 8:35, Miranda Devine from the New York Post on, well, the pending Hunter Biden trial. That's a lot. It's all coming up. Thank God I've got Mercedes Schlapp here this morning to help me through it all. Mercedes, it was a very late night in Scranton, so I need you to sort of just, say whatever you want.
It was a late night in the Schlapp house. We had our niece graduate from high school, so we were out too, Larry. So suck it up, Buttercup, okay? Just suck it up, Buttercup. No,
we were in
great.
Scranton. We kicked off the bus tour for Independent Women's Forum and a whole coalition of organizations, including the Defense of Freedom Institute. Betsy DeVos was here. Riley Gaines was here. A ton of athletes all wanting to keep women's sports, female. And
what a concept.
I know. It's shocking.
Larry,
well,
can you believe
these
are the arguments we're having now? Like, these are the discussions. Is like, men can get pregnant. Like, the left has just made everything so insane. It's like you just want some normal, calm, like, nothing that's too controversial. No. They have to throw everything into the mix.
We used to debate about capital gains tax rates.
I know, right?
No.
Let's talk about the death tax. I mean, wasn't the death tax a big thing?
I was the only man on the stage yesterday. It was like, 15 women and me, and I felt compelled.
Larry loved it. Larry loved it.
It was a tough gig. I felt compelled to point out to the audience that I'm not a woman. And it got a laugh, and I said, hey, the Secretary of Education or Health and Human Services might be watching. They get very confused about these things.
That's right.
We take nothing for granted.
We do need the men.
I said also, even more obviously, I'm not an athlete, and that actually got a. Anyway, yes, you were saying.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, they could. Yeah, they could maybe beat you in a couple of sports.
No, every single one of them. But I'm the only man that it was a good event, and it's going to be coming to D.C. It's going to be coming to Virginia. It's going to be coming to parts of Maryland, West Virginia. The bus tour is going to be going all over the place, and later in the tour, Martina Navratilova is going to be joining the festivities.
Oh wow!
As well. So
see, but this is why we need these women, strong women, to come together and support. And really know that their voices matter, that they don't have to just simply accept what the left is pushing. This is a minority of individuals with a very loud bullhorn and with a lot of money behind them, trying to dismantle Western civilization, trying to dismantle our American society, and really to minimize women. I mean, to make them, taking them back, not forward, in the sense that when it comes to competing in sports, where they, you get for a lot of these girls, it helps them build their self-esteem. And, obviously they're given these great talents to then have to, lose to a guy. Give me a break. Give me a break.
At the root
although
of
I
all
think
of
I could
these...
beat you too in some sports. Maybe tennis. Tennis would be the only one I might be able to beat you at. That's about it.
Why do you have to be so competitive with me? I don't understand why.
Because I have a very competitive nature. My children tell me that all the time.
I could beat you.
They know when I've lost a tennis
Billie
match.
Jean King. Are you going to Bobby Riggs thing? Are you going to want the doubles courts and stuff?
Oh, that'd be kind of fun.
No, you get no. You either beat me with the rules of the game as they are, or we're not going to play. I haven't played tennis in 20 years, but I would. Still
then maybe
beat
you can beat me.
I would kick your butt.
I figured you probably would because you would have muscle memory type of thing. Like,
absolutely. My reflex is
how come you
cat-like.
haven't played in 20 years? What's wrong with you?
Because I had children. I'd better pray.
Hello.
I could never say to myself, you know what? I could either stay here with my children or I could go play tennis. I think I'll go play tennis. No, I
Are you
committed
trying to make
to
me
my
feel
kids.
guilty? Because
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. The point is, our daughters need to have access to sports at every level. They need to be able to be in safe spaces. I don't know. It's a quaint notion, but I think that a minor child should not be exposed to male genitalia against her consent. I don't think that she should have to disrobe in front of a biological male without her consent. Or actually, I don't think she should at all, but certainly not under the auspices of our government mandating it to happen. It's one of the most despicable things that the federal government has forced on people, and it's all coming from the Biden administration. I don't care if you don't like the tweets. This is what you're voting for when you vote this November, and they gotta fix this, and they gotta change it immediately. And the coalition last night, it's important for people to recognize that there were pro-choice women's groups up there. There was a organization that is really represented mostly by lesbians who are looking for lesbian women's rights and gay rights. But they all come together on this because the agenda here is to erase what it truly means to be a woman. As soon as you take the sexual definition out of gender and say that it's fluid and it has absolutely no basis on the actual biological makeup of a woman, then every single sex discrimination law on the books goes out the window. Every single thing that has been fought for since Susan B. Anthony gets put through the shredder. And these, Joe Biden talks about, we need to put our differences aside and come together and get something done. That's what happened last night in Scranton. Because you had people who have very little agreement on other policy issues, but on this thing they've come together on. And it's going to be a major issue this year.
And if you're a parent of a girl, I mean, obviously, I have 5 girls, you have 2. It's personal. It's personal, and so you want to protect your girls, and you know what, you want them to have these opportunities to compete, and I think when you're looking at the fact that like you were saying, the left, the right coming together on this issue. The reality has become is understanding the mentality of the left-wing propaganda, which is that, their destruction of the individual itself, right? They've gone after the family. Now it's this destruction of the individual where there should be no, what do you mean female versus male? It's like you were mentioning fluid, but then where does that go next? Then that goes into the sexualization of the children, which they're already there. That's what the left is pushing for. And, so I think that there's this huge opportunity where women and athletes need to stand up, and parents need to stand up to fight this insanity.
That's what they're doing. If you want more information, it's the Our Bodies, Our Sports Coalition at ourbodiesoursports.com. They billed it last night as the largest, most ideologically diverse women's movement of our time. And it's a bus tour that's coming to your neighborhood soon. It's going to be in D.C. in late June, so we'll give you more details as it comes closer here. But it's hitting Oklahoma, Montana, Nevada, Arizona, Nebraska, Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, North Carolina. Gosh, it sounds like when you were on the Trump bus, man. This is a big deal. It's going all across the country, and yes, we'll be covering much more of it. So I was very happy to kick it off last night alongside Julie Gunlock as we emceed the event. And now it's 5:15. WMAL traffic.
It's 1939. Weeknights with Mark Levin, 6 to 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Democrats in the U.S. Senate have been calling for Justice Samuel Alito to recuse himself from pending decisions having to do with the January 6th riot at the Capitol. They've been citing his wife's flying of an upside-down American flag, which, of course, is a universal symbol of crisis and distress, as well as the Revolutionary War-era Appeal to Heaven flag, which was designed and commissioned by George Washington. But both of those emblems has been described as white nationalist, Christian nationalist insurrection banners. Justice Samuel Alito gave his answer yesterday. He said to those Democrats in the Senate, he basically said, "Bite me." He said, "Go pound sand." He said, "To hell with you. You're not the boss of me. I'll do whatever I want. And no, I won't recuse myself." And good for him.
Look, these are coordinated attacks against. We've seen this with Clarence Thomas, and they went after his wife, Ginny Thomas, and then now it's who's their next target? Well, I mean, and then, of course, you had the assassination attempt on Brett Kavanaugh. So this is tragic in so many ways, because it's for the first time, and this is understanding, again, the global plan of the left. Like, this is what they do. They do this in countries like Brazil. They do this in other countries where the judicial system is basically infiltrated. They try to discredit the judiciary. And I think that this is now, the target has shifted, not necessarily shifted completely, but shifted to Justice Samuel Alito. Yeah. And you've seen, and then they start going into their marriage, which is insane, right. Larry.
It is, and it's un-American and unconstitutional. And, of course, Justice Alito is a little bit more articulate than my attribution to him. He did not say, "Bite me." I will quote exactly what he said. "A reasonable person who is not motivated by political or ideological considerations or a desire to affect the outcome of Supreme Court cases would conclude that this event does not meet the applicable standard for recusal. I am therefore duty-bound to reject your recusal request," which it basically means bite me. He went on to talk about his wife, who flew the flags, and said that she is a private citizen and possesses the same First Amendment rights as every other American. She makes her own decisions. I've always respected her right to do so. And this is the crux of the attack here. And you're right, it's the same despicable thing they do to Clarence Thomas, because his wife, Ginny, dares to be outspoken and politically active. And it's really an incredible insight into their perception of marriage. That, well, if the wife is so mouthy about her politics, then that obviously that means that he can't be impartial. It's actually incredibly insulting to the intelligence and independence of the women involved here.
Exactly. Well, and then the Daily Beast opinion piece, "The signs of a troubled Alito marriage are mounting." Oh. Yeah, this is what they do. This is what the Daily Beast does.
There hasn't been a lot of discussion about the other woman in the crux of this. Is a neighbor. This is a spat between neighbors in Alexandria.
Yes.
Which, who here is surprised that the liberal neighbors of Justice Alito and Mrs. Alito
wouldn't like him? Oh, I have plenty of those in my neighborhood.
Got really aggressive and obnoxious in Alexandria. But the woman in question. So this woman, she's 30 years old. She's a failed actor who came back to live in her mommy's house with her boyfriend, now husband. During COVID, they were, I've seen a picture of her. She is the woman who is walking across the street with 3 masks on and screams at you if you're walking alone on the sidewalk without a mask. This is who she is. And apparently, she put up a sign in front of her house, well, really her mom's house, that said F Trump. But the actual F word was displayed for everyone in the neighborhood to see. Children, priests, pastors, whoever's walking around. Here's an outright profanity that she put out on a sign on the neighborhood. So Mrs. Alito said, "I find that to be offensive." And then the war began, including our charming little 30-year-old out-of-work actor living in mommy's house with her boyfriend, calling the justice's wife the C word. The most outrageous, it's spelled like can't, but it's got a different vowel in there instead of
an A. We got it, Larry. We got it. That's horrible.
See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday. But
she called her that. And now we're supposed to be outraged that during this neighborhood spat, Mrs. Alito flew a flag upside down because she was in crisis mode over this outrageous
What I don't understand is how, I don't know, when I'm in my neighborhood, I don't want to be talking about politics. Like, I want to be talking about, like, oh, your garden looks great, or how's, Sue, or how's Mary. Yeah. Like, put it aside. But the left, they hate you. They want to destroy you. They think that what you believe in is so bad. It's so evil. And it's like, no, actually, we want to, like, love one another. We want to get along. Like, we might disagree on policy. We might disagree on appointments to the Supreme Court. But come on, be adult. Be an adult. Like, make it work. It's your neighborhood. But no, they're intolerant. They are intolerant, Larry.
They are. How much do you want to bet, though, that right next to the F Trump sign, our little 30-year-old out-of-work actress also had a "Hate has no home here" sign?
That's what they do. They totally do. They do the whole "let's coexist, let's get along."
Hate has no home here.
If you voted
now
for
get
Trump,
off my lawn, you C-word.
Yeah. But the great thing is Alito said in the letter of in regards to the appeal to the heaven flag, he said, she may have mentioned its history, which dates back to the American Revolution. He said he assumed she was flying it to express a patriotic and religious message. Yeah. It's like, let her have. Martha is a beautiful, wonderful, strong woman, and she has every right to have her opinion. Actually, kind of separate from her husband. I think that's the case, and so let it be. Actually,
frankly, I believe I have opinions very much in line with Mrs. Alito, and
I do too.
You live in Alexandria, and I want you to set up a meeting. I think we should party. I think we should get together and have some Chardonnay and tell it like it is. In fact, you should bring her on next Thursday. Only if we can bring Ginny
Thomas. That's the
sure. Oh, now we're talking.
That's a point. No.
It's 5:24.
Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Okay, 5:37, and we've got a busy morning ahead of us here on O'Connor and Company. At 6:05, Mark Paoletta is going to follow up on that Alito story we just discussed. 6:35, Brent Bozell, Media Research Center, on the media coverage of the Trump trial. 7:05, Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch. 7:35, Nick Minnock, covering more scandals out of Loudoun County school system. 8:05, the chairman of the RNC, Michael Whatley. And then at 8:35, Miranda Devine, New York Post, on the Hunter Biden trial that's coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor with Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercedes.
It must be Thursday.
Yep, it's got to be.
Are you ready for the weekend or not really?
No, I got to get a verdict out of Manhattan before my weekend can start, and it might come today. The jurors now have they've got the case. It's up to these 12 men and women in Manhattan to sort of weigh what they've been told by Alvin Bragg's prosecution, and they got to decide whether Donald Trump is guilty. But the jury instructions are, well, confusing to say the least. Where to begin here? First of all, as we learned from Joe DeGenova, Mercedes, on Monday, the jury doesn't actually get the written jury instructions. The judge tells them their instructions, and then they just go into the jury room and try to work it out. And the jury instructions from the judge, 53 written pages. It took over an hour to deliver the instructions. And now the jury's just on their own. They can't refer back to it. If they have a question, they write out a question and they send it to the judge, and the judge answers it. It's kind of nuts.
It's insanity. It's insanity. I mean, and then you've got the fact that the judge is basically saying, yeah, well, you don't have to be unanimous in how you decide he committed the crime or not. I mean, it's insanity.
Let me lay that out for you. So there's I think we've been pretty clear explaining it to everybody going into this over the last couple of weeks. But the whole idea here is that the accusation is that Donald Trump or his organization falsified financial records. They tried to cover up what was a payment to Stormy Daniels through a non-disclosure agreement, and they just categorized it as legal fees because, it was a legal fee.
Right.
They're saying that's falsifying a record. And normally that would be a misdemeanor. And by the way, 8 years later, it wouldn't fall under the statute of limitations.
Right.
But to bring this case, as Alvin Bragg promised his voters he would, regardless of whether it was legal or not, he had to say that, well, if you commit one misdemeanor for the purpose of covering up another misdemeanor, well, that then becomes a felony. And so his whole creation here that he's thrown to the jury is that he falsified the business records in connection with a secondary crime. And that's where the judge's instructions are insane. I'll read here from Zach Smith, who's one of the senior legal fellows over at the Heritage Foundation. Merchant told the jury that to convict Trump of falsifying business records in the first degree under Trump penal law, Bragg must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump intended to commit another crime or to aid or conceal the commission thereof. That crime, well, according to the judge, it would be a violation of New York election law, which provides that any two or more person who conspire to promote or prevent the election of any person to a public office by unlawful means, and which conspiracy is acted upon by one or more of the parties thereto, shall be guilty of conspiracy to promote or prevent an election. But there's no definition as to what that actually means, this phrase, to promote or prevent the election by unlawful means. And here's where you were just alluding to. The judge told the jury that to convict Trump, all 12 jurors must conclude unanimously that the defendant conspired to promote or prevent the election of any person to a public office, but they don't need to be unanimous as to what those unlawful means were. So they can all have different opinions about what Trump did to sort of fudge the election in the state of New York, but they don't, all 12 of them don't have to agree on that premise for him to be found guilty of this larger crime. It
could be violations of the Federal Election Campaign Act, or could include falsifying certain other business records, or include alleged state and federal tax law violations. I mean, it's seriously like, just pick one. Pick a crime. Pick a crime. As a juror, you can pick one. Like, you have, it's like picking different flavors of ice cream, right? Ice cream
or ordering
it's
off
like,
of
do you
a
want
Chinese
chocolate,
menu.
Vanilla, or strawberry, but you're guilty? Seriously,
little from
Mary.
column A, little from column B. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you get there. Just get to a guilty verdict.
I mean, this is the complete, how can I say, like, pollution of our judicial system. This judge is, when I think about an authoritarian figure, he falls into this category. He's making it so that it will be very tough for the jury to basically say, he could have committed a crime. But remember, it's based on reasonable doubt. It's based on the intent of the crime. And I pray there's like a brave juror who can say, I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this.
Yeah, I do
especially
too.
because the judge didn't even allow for that. The witness that was representing, that worked for the federal election.
He was the chairman of the Federal Election Commission to describe the election law, and they weren't allowed to actually hear the law laid out.
No,
itself.
But you can have the liar, Michael Cohen, be your star witness.
Yeah, it's troubling to say the least. And again, I don't know. I don't think you need to be, drinking any kind of MAGA Kool-Aid here and have a Trump tattoo on your butt to say that if for the first time in American history we decide to prosecute a former president, maybe the law should really be cut and dry, and the case against him should be a slam dunk. Otherwise, maybe you have some prudence here and say, yeah, this probably isn't a good idea, especially if that guy is running for president right now and beating the current president in every poll.
Yeah.
It's banana republic crap.
My favorite line from President Trump was yesterday when he said, Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. I was like, he's right. He's right. I mean, he is
right,
impossible.
and it sets everybody up for what you should expect there to be a conviction. And at this point, honestly, I used to be worried that if there was a conviction, people would do stupid things, which certainly God knows we don't want them to do. Actually, I think at this point it's going to be a joke. If there's a conviction, it's like, well, of course.
Of course there's a conviction. Then you go to appeal. The big question will be, because I had Pam Bondi on, the former Florida's Attorney General, basically saying, look, I mean, if he ends up, the judge is the one then decides if he goes to jail or not. So remember, there's all this talk about Secret Service talking to the New York police and about the jail situation. So that would cause an uproar completely.
Sure would. It's 5:44. We've got plenty more on the. And now we get the spectacle, Mercedes Schlapp, of the media trying to guess what's going to happen. Did you see some of the analysts who said, I was watching the jury as they were getting the instructions?
Oh, gosh, yes.
One of them turned and looked at Alvin Bragg, and it looked like there was a smirk. And the other one looked a little constipated. And I'm thinking that maybe this made
nose.
It's insanity. Insanity. That said, you should pick and choose your legal analysts wisely, please, and determine which ones you're going to listen to and take some sort of, heed from based on, how they arrive at their conclusions. Jonathan Turley, I think, is one of the better ones, and here was something that he picked up on yesterday.
I got to tell you, as a criminal defense attorney, I would not view this as clearly good news for the prosecution. The only reason why a jury would send out a request to hear the instructions again is if there's a disagreement about what the instructions are. That indicates that there may be a conflict with jurors in that room about what their standard is, how they're supposed to look at the evidence. There's various reasons why these particular parts of the testimony would be demanded by the jury. Among them is a rather intriguing one. The judge told the jury that if Cohen lied to any material fact, the jury could disregard all of his testimony. Now, he noted that means that you have to look for corroboration of Cohen, because he is someone who obviously is not just a serial perjurer, but he's an accomplice. So they happen to have requested the Trump meeting, which the government cited as corroboration for Cohen. So it may have been that they started logically and say, first of all, can we consider anything that Michael Cohen has said? And that would lead them to corroboration, which would lead them to the Trump Tower meetings. It would also lead them to the instruction. Now, is that what's going on? Not necessarily. That's one possibility. The other possibilities include that they're looking at this evidence and they're trying to figure out what they can establish as fact, not just to insinuate or assume the facts. So I don't consider this such a clearly positive thing for the prosecution. As a defense attorney, I would welcome this type of request. They were only in there for a few hours and asked to hear the instructions again.
There you go. So, again, that makes sense to me, what he said. It is encouraging that they're trying to dissect. If I were on this jury, I would say, all right, obviously Michael Cohen is the star witness here. If you believe what Michael Cohen said, then you got to believe that something happened here. So let's determine whether we believe what Michael Cohen said. And
Stormy Daniels' testimony, which we know that none of that should have even been included as part of the evidence. There's nothing there other than to embarrass President Trump. I mean, that's truly what it was about. So they're basically, quote unquote, two witnesses, main witnesses of the prosecution. I mean, they absolutely, A, hate Donald Trump, B, have, Michael Cohen has lied, C, Stormy Daniels made money off of Donald Trump, which is extortion, and D, this is why you're seeing, I would say, the jury just saying, wait a second, I'm perplexed by how they've presented the arguments, and I think this could backfire on Judge Merchant and basically the prosecution as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think to sum up what Jonathan Turley said last night, if they think Michael Cohen's a liar, then the whole case falls apart. And oh, by the way, Michael Cohen's a liar.
Oh, by the way, yes.
So,
but it is New York. I mean, it's just I do pray that the jury really understands this has become just so dirty. It's just dirty in how they've managed this whole process.
I would say I would pray for this. Honestly, I'm not going to waste God's time with this one. I
am. I am. Because we can't lose. The problem is this lawfare is real. This idea that you have these Democrat type of prosecutors and these judges just honing in on taking down conservatives it's really disturbing. I'm telling you, Larry. Before you know it, what are they going to do? Are they going to go after radio hosts?
I recognize. No, don't get me wrong. When I say I'm not going to waste God's time on it, it's like asking God to defy gravity right now. I mean, yes, He can do that, But this
With
is
God,
so. I'm
all
sorry,
things are
it's
possible.
so baked in the
Really?
cake. They have. What I'm going to pray for is that the American people see this for what it is and not pay any attention to it, because it has no bearing on the election. It has no bearing on what we're deciding for in November. If you're Joe Biden and you think you got the most votes of any man in the history of America, why in the hell do you have to go through these great lengths to defeat your opponent who is, this side of Hitler? And it's obvious that they have created this entire thing to undermine the voters of this country. And we need to put our faith in and put our hope in, with God's help, the American people rising above this nonsense. I know they're coming after radio hosts, Mercedes, and I know they're coming after you and your family. They're coming after all of us. And this is why we need to make sure that voters get it right, regardless of what happens in Manhattan.
You make me want to cry. I'm so proud of you. You make me want to cry, Larry. Really, truly. Beautiful. You're
Is it
right.
my haircut?
No.
All right.
No,
'Cause
it
I
was
just
your
got it cut,
inspirational
and I
speech.
know.
Like, we need that. Don't be weak in spirit. Stand up. Speak up. Fight. This is where we are. This is a challenge. This is a battle for the soul of America. And we're all part of this.
And it looks really good.
Did you get a haircut? You did get a haircut.
Don't you like it?
What did they do to your hair?
It's 5:55.